around in just a moment. But as we continue to watch these pictures, we're going to go to the other side of the aisle. Joining us now is Virginia Democratic Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So the president of a union that oversees federal workers said, quote, they are treating these people, talking about all these federal government layoffs, they are treating these people as if they are not human beings. Now, you heard your Republican colleague, Congresswoman Vought, there speaking just moments ago. What do you make of these layoffs from Trump and Elon Musk so far?
Well, first of all, before Russell Vought had said that he wanted to traumatize the federal workforce, and that is exactly what is happening. I have received texts from federal employees who say, help us. I received a letter from the wife of an FBI agent who says she and her family live in fear because of the purge and release of sensitive information, personally identifying information about FBI agents. And so I think there is also an unintended or intended consequence that so many of these across the board purges, layoffs are having a real impact on the ability to keep the American people safe and to provide services. You know, just when you saw the people who maintain our nuclear stockpile who were accidentally fired and now can't be brought back because no one has their personal contact information. VA hospital that is supposed to open in Fredericksburg, the largest in the country, is unable to open because they can't fully staff up. And these are consequences of these rash across the board cuts that don't think critically about what the impact is going to be.
Well, you know, your detractors would say, well, Biden and his administration and previous administration should have done this a long time ago, and they're just doing what they feel like has to be done to almost go and start anew. You just think that it needs a scalpel instead of an axe here?
I think you need to have people who understand how these agencies work go in and do whatever reform needs to be done, not give the keys to an unvetted billionaire who clearly doesn't understand what these agencies do, what these employees do, how they do it, and is making very arbitrary and rash decisions that are impacting the services that are provided to the American people and the safety of our country.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you can see these pictures, but Donald Trump's just there on the tarmac there at Daytona Beach there in Florida ahead of the Daytona 500. And one of the criticisms that Joe Biden had was that he wouldn't do a whole lot of media, and Trump is saying, I'm going to be as transparent as possible. You have somebody in your own party, Bernie Sanders, saying that Democrats as a whole, the party has abandoned the working class. Donald Trump really trying to make appearances at these types of things. He was at the Super Bowl as the first president to do that. This is his second time at the Daytona 500. How will Democrats, how is your party right now sort of licking their wounds after the 2024 election and rebuilding, and how will they reach the common man?
You know, I think one of the lessons of the election was that we need to meet people where they are and not just, while we love coming on TV shows like this, we need to meet the American people where they are. If that's at the Daytona 500, if it's at the VFW, if it's on podcasts, we need to meet them where they are to talk to them about the issues they care about and what we are doing. And I think you're going to see Democrats do that more. And that is the biggest lesson learned from the election.
Okay, if we can, and now we're just seeing your face for the first time as we've gone off the live picture. So welcome in again once to NewsNation. Now, if we can talk a little bit about everything going on in the Middle East. We've had a lot of news come out. In fact, 3 hostages just released yesterday. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is likely to face some pushback from Arab leaders over Trump's proposal about a week ago to transfer the Palestinian population out of Gaza and redevelop it under U.S. ownership. How do you expect Rubio's Middle East visit to be going over this week as a whole?
You know, I think there's a lot of concern amongst everybody in the Middle East, particularly our allies that we have been working with to try to put the Middle East on a path to long-term peace and stability. And a unilateral decision that looks like it could be ethnic cleansing to remove Palestinians from where they live, to develop that land and ultimately would require probably the American soldiers to be on the ground to help keep the peace there. I think we are very concerned that, again, you may end up with a very rash action that doesn't think through the long-term implications for peace and stability in the region.
Do you think there's any merit? I heard a member of Trump's envoy that has been over there in the Middle East saying that this is for the Palestinian people's own good in some senses. You know, if we've seen the pictures, it's an absolute war zone. It's horrible. You know, they could accidentally step on an IED. A building could collapse on them, for crying out loud. The water, you can't drink it there. Everybody who's living in the region currently is on the brink of famine. What do you make of that argument?
Well, part of what we need to be doing is getting humanitarian aid into the area to address what's happening on the ground right now. And I don't think that's happening. But you also see Palestinians who have said, this is my home, I'm not leaving. You know, I was born here, I was raised here. Why should I have to leave? And so I think when you do something that's in the best interest of the Palestinian people, make sure they have a seat at the table and that you're not just making decisions for them that are ultimately not going to be in their best interest.
Oh, it's just such a tricky situation there, and the saga goes on as the ceasefire is in phase 2, and folks are hoping that it will be able to go on to the next phase and the next as we wrap up phase 1. American and Russian officials, if we can go now to the war in Ukraine, American officials are meeting with Russian officials, and they're going to be doing that in Saudi Arabia over the war. And according to Ukraine's president this week, Volodymyr Zelensky, he says that Ukraine was not invited to the talks, nor will any representatives from other European nations be involved in these talks. Do you think Ukraine should be directly involved when Trump and Putin are trying to figure out how to end this war?
Absolutely. I don't understand how you can have lead to a bilateral peace agreement if you don't have one of the parties there. And the only way that we are going to have peace in the Ukraine is that you don't concede to a authoritarian dictator who is trying to expand his territory. You don't legitimize his efforts to take it by force. You don't appease him. We saw in World War II that when you appease someone like that, it doesn't work and it emboldens them. And so I am very concerned not only that Ukraine and our allies don't have a seat at the table, but I'm concerned that the Secretary of Defense, the President, and the Vice President have signaled what they're going to give away, and that weakens your negotiating posture. If you walk into negotiations already saying, we're going to give in to you and legitimize your efforts to take territory by force.
Do you think Ukraine is going to have to give up some territory in the end to end the war?
I do not believe that you should legitimize and reward efforts of Putin to ignore sovereign territory. And I think that would be dangerous. Just as dangerous as Chamberlain in the 30s conceding to Hitler when he annexed Czechoslovakia and Austria, and he did not stop there. He saw how weak the alliance was, and he went on to invade Poland, and we saw what happened from there. We need to be very careful not to repeat history.
Well, yeah, we certainly don't want to repeat that type of history, and someone said that it would incentivize him once the war is ended to just start again and try to get more land. Virginia Democratic Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan, thanks so much for joining us. Great chatting today.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend. 17 minutes.